Well, to tell us more about the policy ideas, we're joined by the Shadow Minister for Families and Human Services, Kevin Andrews. Thanks for your time. On that issue that Julia Gillard raises, what is the cost? Do you have a ballpark? Do you have any idea what these sorts of reforms would cost?
Our responsibility, David, is to take our costings to the people at the time of the next election, and that's what we will do.
So at the moment it's an uncosted idea?
Well, we're working through the detail of the policy, which we will do. We will obviously consult with people in the sector, and when we're in a situation where we actually know what the government's finances are, which we don't at the present time, given that the next election could be a couple of years away, well then we will, at the appropriate time, which is before the next election, provide the costings of all our policies, including this one.
All right, now a couple of these ideas already appear to be in place. Suspending unemployment benefits for young people who refuse to take an unskilled job. Isn't that already the case? If you don't take an unskilled job, if you don't have a crack at an available job, you will have your payments suspended?
Well, this is different to that in the sense of saying, look, there are areas of the country where there are jobs available. So we're going further than what we've got at the present time. I mean, we've got the government having an internal brawl over the last few weeks about whether or not you could actually cut the unemployment benefits to someone who doesn't turn up to a job interview. So this is nowhere near at the present time what we're proposing, and that is simply to say, if there are jobs readily available in an area and there are people who are there who are on New Start or unemployment benefits, well then there should be an incentive for them to take those jobs.
I guess the tricky bit gets to the definition of an area. So if, say, you lived in Greater Melbourne or Greater Sydney, there are unskilled jobs available, you must take those or lose your benefits?
Well, there are at the present time rules about how far and what time you need to travel in order to take a job. So those sorts of things will obviously be in the detail of the policy. There are at the present time surveys which are undertaken by the relevant government departments about where jobs are available. There's a wide network of job service agencies across Australia who can tell us where jobs are available. So the information, the data can be collected and made available.
Is it a reasonable to speculate you'd be requiring people to travel a fair distance? So would 1 hour, 2 hours travel be considered reasonable?
Well, at the present time, there's a rule which relates to the amount of time which you need to travel, and certainly 1 hour at the present time is regarded, was under us and has been under this government, as not an unreasonable time to travel. I mean, if you're living in the outer western suburbs of Sydney or you're living in the outer eastern suburbs of Melbourne, there are many thousands of people who travel a couple of hours each day to get to work.
Very true. Now, a few of the other ideas that have been put forward. The disability support pension is clearly something that's ballooned in cost. A lot more people are on it than the New Start allowance, and you want to tackle that by having a different payment, a new payment for disabilities that are treatable. Now, looking at the website though for New Start, there is a payment under New Start for people who are temporarily incapacitated. So doesn't that already exist in a way?
No, what we've got with the disability support pension is first a significant burgeoning in the numbers. If you go back to 2005, there was about 700,000 people in receipt of the DSP. Today there's about 800,000 in receipt of the DSP. So that growth in the numbers has far exceeded population growth over that period of time. And we're saying we need to tackle that. Now, you may recall that when the Productivity Commission released its report into a National Disability Insurance Scheme, we were sympathetic to doing something and provided some support for the interim report of the Productivity Commission. There is a group of people who have long-term, lifelong, if you like, disability, and we need to be able to properly fund them and properly support them. But then there's another group of people who are, with the right incentive and the right assistance, capable of working, and what we're saying is we should be providing the opportunity for those people to get into work rather than condemning them to being on the DSP for life.
Is there a risk, though, that by having another payment, a new separate payment, you're only going to end up with more people on welfare, on income support?
Well, the Secretary of the Department of Families, Jeff Harmer, warned before Christmas that this was one of the greatest challenges facing the government at the present time. He's mindful of it, as are many other people. There was a library research paper just recently that said that there were people moving on to DSP and away from other benefits because it's the only benefit that effectively is not activity tested. And what we're saying is that it's appropriate to activity test this benefit where there are people who have got temporary incapacity, and we can help them get back to work because it's in their interests, in their family's interests, and frankly in society's interests if people can be in work where they're capable of working.
I guess the most contentious idea Tony Abbott put on the table today is expanding welfare quarantining, income management beyond just the Northern Territory to the whole country. This is where around half of your welfare must be spent on the necessities of life. Now, welfare groups say this still hasn't proven to be a success. It's still very much untested. The trials that have been going on in the Northern Territory still don't show that it's a good idea. What evidence is there this should be rolled out across the whole country?
We, as you know, David, introduced this for certain Indigenous communities in the Northern Territory. The current Labor government said that they wanted to change that and, in fact, expanded it right across the Territory for both Indigenous and non-Indigenous recipients of welfare. And we say that if it's appropriate to have in the Northern Territory, and we said this at the time, then it's appropriate to have across the country. I mean, there are people in receipt of welfare for whom quarantining of their income is a valuable thing. There was evidence, for example, at the recent inquiry into gambling, saying that I think something like 50% of all problem gamblers in Australia are welfare recipients. So obviously this would be a great protection to people in that situation, particularly where they have families.
All right, Kevin Andrews, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us this afternoon.
My pleasure, David.
We're going to look now at what's been happening in business and finance